Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jessica Lemann, and I am the Senior Associate State Director for AARP Texas. AARP Texas is so proud to sponsor this series because, as you will hear more about later, because I happen to be one of the speakers for this section, caregiving is really at the heart of what we do at AARP. Normally, I would use this time to go into more details about the AARP resources, but since you'll be hearing plenty about that later, I just want to highlight a few. One is aarp.org/caregiving. That is a site where you will find our caregiver guide that you can download. We also have a financial planning guide for caregivers at that site. And then I also want to mention aarp.org/Texas, and that is where you will find all of our virtual and in-person events, and they are all free and open to the public. You do not need to be a member of AARP to access any of the resources that I will mention today or any of our events. But today, our webinar is going to focus on, the financial aspect of caregiving as well as building your caregiver team. And so I think you're going to get a ton of great information. And I'm just so grateful to Age of Central Texas for putting on this webinar and all of the many things that they do. We are so lucky in Central Texas to have an organization like Age to support family caregivers. So thank you so much. And with that, I will hand it back over to Bonnie.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. When we were creating this seminar, I was thinking it's January, it's the new year. Really wanted to set people up for success in 2024, whether you're an older adult or a caregiver. And I thought, who better to have than Shannon Tefft-Janes? Shannon Tefft-Janes has a business called Independence Navigator. And when I talked to her last year, she said these words to me, financial fortress. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love that. I love the idea of getting so organized that we have built a financial fortress. And I know that I field, in my role here at Age as the Information and Resource Director, I field a lot of calls that are related to finances. And so I thought, I think Shannon's going to be the best person to kick off our speaker series for the year. So Shannon, welcome. We're so excited to have you, so excited to learn some of the things that we should be thinking about, things we didn't know, how to get organized with our finances. So I am going to let you just run with it for the next 45 minutes or so. And you can certainly share your screen, all those things. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for having me. As Bonnie mentioned, my name is Shannon Tefft-Janes, and I own and operate Independence Navigator. I'm what they call a daily money manager. I'll talk about that in a second, a little bit in the presentation. My passion is to help folks, young all the way through old, with a bit of financial literacy, but in particular on how to structure things in today's very crazy environment. We have a lot of things going on, especially for younger folks that are helping older parents, and there's a lot of things that they're juggling in particular. So I wanted to teach people a methodology in not only for older folks, but also for yourself on how to streamline, modify, separate, and hold your finances in a good position. So the first thing I wanted to do, and I wanted to share this in the chat, is that I am offering, and this is going to be a fire hose of a presentation. So 50,000-foot view. You might want to look at the videos a few times, but I'm also extending to all of you a group session if you wanted to do a bit of meet for about an hour or so, 10, 15 people, and go over your situation and go over this presentation, ask questions and things like that. So without any further ado, let's kind of dive right into it here. Let me go in and share the screen. There we go. Is everybody able to see the slideshow okay? Great. Now, I do ask that if you can hold questions until the end, and then I'll take the questions there. a lot of stuff gets answered a little bit later on. So this is kind of like what I call the financial fortress model. And it is kind of a proactive way of structuring things with the idea is that you're going to run into scams, you're going to run into financial incursions. And the whole idea is to strengthen how your communications and your accounts are set up to provide yourself with as much agency, be able to monitor things as easily as possible. But if something does happen, it is very contained so that you have some resilience. And the idea is that you're living life now and you're not constantly worrying about the situation. Let me minimize that in case that's an issue. So again, my name is Shannon Tefft-Janes. I'm a member also of the American Association of Daily Money Managers, and I'll explain here what a daily money manager is. I help folks, some busy professionals, some seniors that are aging in place, and I make sure that the bills get paid and the lights stay on. I also work in conjunction with attorneys, CPAs, that sort of thing. I do a lot of financial triage. I don't replace the CPA or attorney by any means, but I do, as I say, a lot of financial triage to make sure those folks get the information they need, the right type of information, and then I kind of help project manage anything like that. Now, as I had mentioned, this is kind of a passion for me. Older victims of financial fraud, and I can see some residuals of some attempts in some of my elderly clients. It's a huge problem. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of statistics. And here's a lot of the most common scams. The grandparent scam is the one that's kind of keeping me up at night, especially with AI. And some of the suggestions I have further in the presentation in particularly have that where they're cloning voices of loved ones. And I think that's particularly insidious. So all of these are things that can come in. And what we want to do is we want to set up our financial fortress model where, again, we're going to try to eliminate these types of issues. There's an old saying in the IT world, they call it zero trust architecture. We're going to try to borrow from that as heavily as possible. So we're really setting up the communications and financial accounts that are anticipatory of scams, and these buffers and notifications provide greater independence and agency. So you're still living life. You're not have to worry about things. The end of this, what we want is we want a blueprint and action plan. We want to give you a resource tool list and of course, and answer any questions, and you're welcome to sign up. That's just a basic form to gauge interest. I don't sell or rent your information or anything like that, and I'll only use it and pertain to this next phase of going into a constant whack-a-mole type of situation. So the first step is financial organizing, knowing what you have and where it is, consolidation and simplification, split financial and transactional communication from personal. This is a big deal, especially if you have somebody that is helping you monitor things. Splitting it helps quite a bit because what it does is it's going to help you set alarm systems and things like that. And then if people are looking in, they're not looking into your personal stuff. So you can have your friends and you can have your, your personal communications, but then your financial communications is in a different type of channel. And then every account has a role and purpose. So when you're looking at that statement, you can pick out transactions that don't look right very quickly, and it saves a ton of time. And of course, you can set up very meaningful alarms. So the 5 stages are legal documents, simplify, separate, secure your communications, and then arranging the financial accounts and associated products. Now, the big thing with this is you're not going to ever hit an ideal. I do show an ideal that I want to present, but everybody's going to be slightly different. So I'll show an ideal, and you're going to try to do this as close as I can. And this is a methodology that I try to also implement with my clients because it allows me to implement and monitor their stuff, and I can then juggle this across many clients and provide good service for them. So if you implement this locally with yourself, you're going to be in a great shape. So this is kind of the bigger plan, the legal documents kind of consolidated all together and put it together. This is not age dependent. Everybody should have this. Even I have this, and I'm, not retired, not a senior citizen quite yet. But everybody should have this. So it's not an issue of age. It's an issue of just being organized. So your legal documents are your technical financial power of attorney, healthcare, HIPAA releases, wills and estate planning. I'm going to go through this really, really quick. Financial and healthcare power of attorneys, I really suggest that if you are hesitant in issuing those out to somebody, because it is a lot of responsibility and there's a lot of back and forth on that, I highly suggest that you talk to an attorney, maybe two, to get some assurances. We hear these horror stories about, man, I gave so-and-so a financial power of attorney and they completely cleaned me out and that sort of thing. They cannot do anything without your express permission. And they act as I have the little minion here. They're your minion. So when you sit down and say, hey, I need this, this, and this done, and maybe you don't have the capacity time, or it's a mobility issue, or it's just really, really complicated. You want the end result, you understand the end result, but you don't quite get the path in between. Powers of attorneys really help. In the cases with families where somebody is maybe having issue or capacity, it's a great way of helping set up the financial fortress. When you're getting the financial POA, I highly suggest that you talk to the banks, and we'll talk about evaluating banks and other types of vendors later, but you talk to them at that particular point and get what they want or need in a financial power of attorney so that you can deal with this much more effectively. You get that type of background for them. And then you can talk to your attorney and make much more meaningful types of stuff. Okay. So your goals is to have estate planning issued or addressed, be able to easily implement the action plan, able to step in immediately to facilitate any resolution, and prepare for the sudden and unexpected. This is also a great time to start looking at larger estate planning issues, make sure things are titled right, that sort of thing. I didn't know if I was hearing something in the background. I didn't know if someone had a question that they could hold off for a little bit. The next step here is simplify and consolidate. So I'm doing this actually with my own family with bank accounts all over the place. It's like, okay, we need to streamline this so that we can keep an idea of what is going on. So when you're dealing with somebody that is a bit older, even for yourself as for that matter, you want to map your hobbies and activities. And this is just a fancy way of saying not only your core budget, but also your needs budget, but also your wants budget. What are things that you enjoy doing and what are things that you want to do in the future? Okay. Financial review. What assets do you have? Where are they? Where are they located? What are they? And then also evaluate business relationships. I get on the banks quite a bit on this. How user-friendly are they? How open are they to different types of services that you'll need in order to support yourself, or if you're helping with a loved one? The whole entire thing, the whole point of all of this is that the client, the person that you're helping, gives input to what things, hobbies, activities, they have to be actively involved with this. This is not something you impose on somebody else. I want people to have as much agency and input in every type of thing. So the types of hobbies and things like that you'd want to do, clubs, sports, professional organizations. This also does with subscriptions, conferences, things that they might still want to be active in. And you need to know when that's coming up, how much money is involved with that, so you can plan that out. If somebody is having some cognitive or mobility issues, what are the different things that might need to go in to have them participate, transportation, lodging, that sort of thing. And how's it paid for? Is it a recurring month-to-month thing, or is it recurring as needed? And we'd set up a separate budget for that. And then sustainability, both financially and also task complexity. And that feeds back into how we can help them participate in that as long as feasible. And this is kind of a non-traditional financial review, but it feeds into financial review and it feeds into long-term planning. So these are important things to consider. Your financial review is, as you would suspect, income sources, other assets, associated expenses. For insurance, and I cannot stress this more, please review the life, health, disability, and that, and put in backup notifications. Even though if you might have them on auto pay, something can happen. Maybe your bank gets bought out and they change the routing numbers. Who knows? And if you don't have backup notifications, and I had a client unfortunately lose long-term care insurance, they had a backup notification. They had their one child as a notification. She moved. They forgot to pay. She got notifications, but bounced back because they didn't update the notifications. And they ended up losing very nice long-term care insurance. So you don't want that to happen. Associated expenses, and also run a credit report. There's a service later on I'm going to talk about that can help make that. During this process, also estate prep. Talk about what do you want to happen to these assets? Who you want them to go to? Are certain assets maybe be liquidated later on to help shore up finances for care and that sort of thing, but have these types of discussions and then go through and maybe do retitling or put things in the trust, depending on what the attorney has recommended, or your CPA. And of course, within this, establish a budget. Amounts and timing. The timing is really, really critical. If the budget's pretty tight, folks are on fixed income, you can often call and arrange a different payment date so that you're not kind of hopping from place to place and kind of borrowing from one pot to pay for another. Get ideas of dates, and then find natural breaks in the transaction. This part here, evaluate business relationships, huge. First thing you need to do is a service needed? So if you're doing a review, say of someone's credit cards, you're going to see a lot of these phantom charges. I see this quite a bit. So it's time to go through and start cleaning this up, getting rid of those charges. Is this form of service sustainable? How long will they be using it? Is the service adjustable for any changing needs? And this is the idea of, hey, I really like this, but man, it's getting harder to get there. And then it feeds back into transportation and how that gets done. Accessibility. Again, I want everybody to participate. I want them to be able to see their statements, their transactions, be able to go to branches to the level that they want to participate in their financial management. Customer service. How well is it customer centric or business centric? So do you get an 800 number and good luck in getting a hold of anybody? And then also honors a POA without drama. So it allows the POA to make transactions, can see accounts. They're not going to get you through a lot of hoops. You can mitigate a lot of that by talking to the banks early on in the process, and then requesting the information and working with the attorney to draft something that helps them if that bank meets the level of service that you guys require. So some of the things that you might want is a convenience signer. Convenience signer is somebody I get on some of my clients' accounts as a convenience signer. I don't own the account, but I can operate with an account to pay bills. Account access means that you can just see. Online access, double signature, or special accommodations. If you're worried about finance scams, things like that, or large chunks of money going out. I had one client's family have, if anything above a certain amount, it needs to be written confirmation to go in, okay? Participates in aggregation networks, Plaid, and that just means, and I'll show some things later on of how you can load in data, not be transactional. And this is really, really helpful for somebody that wants to be involved. And it's probably not a great idea that they have transactional access, because they might go in and accidentally delete bill pay or other things that you have set up. But, you know, they have rights to see their account, so we can use some services there. Single point of contact, fees, commensurate with service. I'm not against folks paying fees if it helps you and it provides you with the information that you particularly need. Don't be afraid to fire, because you need the services to support yourself and support your family with, and ease of use. Consider lost wages frustration. So if your recourse is calling an 800 number and you have to repeat the situation every single time, or you're holding on the line for an hour or so, consider the value of your time. So by this particular point, you should have the legal documents in order or well on their way, or at least these discussions. Have an idea what the budgets are, have the idea of what the assets, insurance is, and then you just have a nice list, and you have at least an idea of what's going on within your or your family's finances. I recommend some quick binders. Things for grab and go, you can just put it simply in a binder. Copies, not originals, copies of POAs, insurance information, medication, and important contacts. This is really important if someone has services at home. Maybe they have a medical trip, an emergency, the caretaker can then just grab a binder and go. These other people, Google Drive is not my favorite. It's a little harder to use for most people, but these are also ways that you can store that information digitally. Waywisers and Careful has a way of also sharing it safely. Longer term organization, essentially anything with a notary seal, raised seal, that sort of thing should keep originals. Most other things should be scanned. There's a thing called a life binder if you want to look that up. It gives you a really good list, more complete than even this one, of things that you should have at least in a banker box or filed away that you can get to very quickly, and you have it there. Now, separate communication is a little bit different, and what I particularly like to do for my clients is I will set up a separate business, an email account. I will also establish a virtual voice account. That's a Google Voice account. The whole idea is to manage two-factor authentication. So what you're going to do is, with these banks and financial institutions all the way down to your Netflix, is you're going to provide this new email account, and you're going to provide this new virtual voice account. Now, with my clients, what I do is I keep their original email and the original phone, and I'll add them to it. The idea is that when I do log in, if I don't have separate login, which I do insist upon for financial accounts, but Netflix, no one cares so much. We can set up two-factor authentication. The other person can get into it without having to coordinate with the other person to retrieve the code. It saves so much time. And then we also want to secure postal communications, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so for the separate business biz account, what we want to do is, and keep in mind, this is not a throwaway account. Just set up a Google account. Microsoft has services too. I'm not as familiar with them. Consider neutral naming. So you don't want to name it first name, last name, something. You want something very, very neutral. This also helps protect you from any types of social engineering. So someone would know your name from the Gmail account. You don't want that. Provide the email, as I had mentioned. And what I do is I go in and I'll set up forwards to trusted contacts. So if I'm setting this up for, say, somebody that I'm servicing, I will turn over the login credentials to them or their trusted contact, POA, whoever. I forward all the emails to myself, and then before that, I can set up forwards of specific types of emails to other people. And those folks can always go in and see exactly what's going on at all time. The voice over IP, again, I just set up a Google Voice. You have to go in once a month or so to update it, and I'll explain that, and that's a little bit more detail than you need at this point. But you really want two-factor authentication. And Google Voice allows you to, like, again, separate this stuff out. and do two-factor authentication so you can really secure this. And then you want to separate postal communications. Now, a lot of people have that's very common in Austin, at least where I am up in Cedar Park. You have the roadside lock boxes, and those are fine. If you happen to have the old-fashioned mailboxes, you need to develop a better system. In particular, if there's a high-traffic household or an unsecured mailbox, that had prior fraud, ongoing legal or financial issues. And the ongoing legal and financial issues means that you definitely want to get every single piece of mail. I've had clients that had home care workers. They do a fabulous job, but you get a sub in and sometimes you'll lose a piece of mail because they've set it somewhere. So if it's really important, you really need to make sure that's taken care of correctly. Okay. Now we're at securing communications. Okay. So we're allow listing, whitelisting, whatever you want to call it. I have come to the conclusion on all of this that, especially with the AI scams going on, impersonating voices, that sort of thing, that you really want to set up communications where only trusted contacts can get through. If they're not on a contact list, then they go to voicemail. The scammers will not leave a voicemail. If it's important, someone will leave a voicemail. Then you can deal with that call and manage it at that time, and then maybe add them to the contact list if it's legitimate. I don't think anything outside of that is going to be effective. Folks in particular, if they have some memory issues, things like that, training is a very, very difficult issue. You have to kind of deal with absolutes. So passwords and shared docs. Again, I cannot stress, please try to refrain from sharing financial passwords. Even if you use LastPass and you follow all of these types of things, do it correctly. Go in as a convenience signer or a POA, get a separate login, keep everything separate as much as possible. We can talk about some password organizers. LastPass, one password, great systems. Waywisers, they're not really a password system, but you can keep secure notes and share those. Again, don't share transactional, share utility stuff or things like that, low level stuff. Careful. And then the old-fashioned password book, keep it locked and then keep it in a locked cabinet. Not a big fan of putting stuff on Google Drive as a shared password, because inevitably people go, anybody with a link can share, and that just causes problems. Phone communications, again, what you want for landline services, you can block in. There's do not call.gov. Do not call.gov, great for honest people, not so much for other people. Landline whitelisting or allow listing. There are certain services that you can get, and I'll show you this phone that I like to use. This LinkedIn article is a great article if you're interested in that. This one I've had used with several clients, and what it does is that if you're not on an allow list, it'll request that you put in some information, and then it'll allow you through. Again, scammers are not going to do that. The downside is if you or your senior is being targeted, it's going to let that call through. It does allow complete blocking, though, if they're not on a predetermined list. Android, iPhone, if you want to go that way with it, they will allow you to do that. And then here's some systems here where you'd have an Android phone going in the background. And that's whitelisting stuff, and it feeds into this. And this is very helpful because people are familiar with this setup while the other goes in the background. Physical mail, literally PO boxes, keep away from checks. If you have to write checks, these pens will not allow you to wash stuff out. Here we go. Or you can get a lockbox and put the mail in. Personal email. Custodio is actually for kids, but it does do quite a bit in terms of not allowing links out, or you can keep links very, very segregated. It also does some email and other types of things. So that's a really good system. And then fraud for monitoring. EverSafe, I like this product. It allows you to aggregate all the accounts. It allows for 3 credit bureau monitoring. 3 credit bureau, you want 3 credit bureaus. Sometimes, oh, one's enough. No, you want 3, because if someone tries to get a loan in your name and that lender reports to one credit bureau, it's going to take about 6 weeks or so before it shows in the other credit report. And if you're pulling from one credit that isn't where that loan's coming in, you're going to have a lag in time, where this is showing all 3. And I think it's like $25 a month or something. It's an interesting service. Careful has one too. Waywiser is a way to share information back and forth. Now, this is the arranging accounts. I know I only have a couple minutes left, so I just want to pull through this really, really quick. And this is, I think, the icing on the cake. Each account you have has a purpose. It has a specific flow. Certain accounts have money coming in and only money going out to certain accounts. You have auto pay is very strategic, because what happens with auto pay is you set it and then you forget about it. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not so good. And I don't think it's very, very good. I want push payments out. I don't like things coming in and taking money out. That's where the problems come in. And you want to allow as much agency as possible for the client. So you have external income sources, investments. It goes into what I call the main inflow. Okay, so you might get RMDs, and then some money goes into a savings. So then you can push money into a bill pay account. Then you have another account from bill pay you push into discretionary, and this is your walk around money. And then there might be a little bit of a set aside account that you have that you're doing a little bit of bill pay savings on. You as an individual, you either have a debit or a reduced credit card. The debit cards I like, MyFlock and TrueLink. What I like about them is their push. So what happens is you can structure the back end and say these can be only used for certain purposes. And they're really, really helpful. In particular is getting additional cards for home health care, home care people, so they can buy groceries. And you give them a separate card and they can go do their thing. And you can keep track of what's going on. And those cards are restricted in the merchants, the types of things that can be purchased. Bill pay, push out. Very, very, can you go in? Mortgage, rent, some insurance policies, can you go in? And you monitor that very, very strictly. But you want everything to go out. I also recommend a bill pay credit card for recurring. So all of your utilities, anything recurring, subscriptions, that sort of thing, go on here. And here's why. And this, by the way, goes into a drawer. You don't touch it. You don't walk around with it. If you're compromised, you're not going through trying to update everything. So it's a really great way. And then, of course, you have an emergency card, engine blows up. So if you're walking around and your card, someone has a card swiper and your card is done, well, you're not going to hit this discretionary account. You're not going to hit these bill pay accounts. As I mentioned, none or few helping themselves here. I'm going to go through this real quick and I'm going to wrap it right up. Big thing with this is that there is no overdraft protection. So you do have to watch it. So when I said about the auto pay, you got to watch it. The idea is that you have everything for a specific purpose. You have this kind of as your front wall of the fortress, and you can't overdraft. So if you put all of these different things in place, that's going to help quite a bit. So I hope that helped. Like I said, this is a 500,000 foot view, wasn't it? So, and that's why I'm offering that hour if people want to do a group session to go over that, because it's huge. And I know probably some of you are still just kind of reeling a little bit, but I did want to be as complete as possible.
You said at the beginning, you warned us all it was going to be a fire hose of information, and it certainly was. So I'm going to kick off kind of the Q&A. There's definitely questions to be asked, and I know that Shannon we have like 20 minutes for Q&A, everybody. So definitely put your questions in the chat, or you can go ahead and raise your hand and I will get to you. One of the questions is, can we get copies of the slides? You know, I am recording this and we will put it up on YouTube. And I think that that's probably going to be the best option for that. Is that, am I thinking right there, Shannon?
Yeah, that would be the best way. Like I said, and anybody that joins you can email me. I did provide my email information there. I'll be happy to provide certain slides,
Okay.
in particular the how the accounts are structured. And then I'd be happy to share whatever else folks need, but I won't give the entire presentation, but they can view it on YouTube and as they need.
I see you've put the link in the chat, and I think your contact information will be in that link as well. Is that right?
That would be the link for if you're interested in setting up for the 1 hour session, just to, it's informal. And, I'm not going to bother you, but it's recognizing that this was a lot of information and you might want to talk about your specific use case, and we can do that in a group session for everybody to learn about it.
Okay. So can I throw out a scenario? Unless anybody else, if you have a question, please definitely go ahead and either put it in the chat or raise your hand, and I will monitor that so we can see everybody. I'm switched to a gallery view, so I think I can see everyone on the call and see your hands. So scenario one, I have not typically been managing the money. My husband does that. And he has started to show a little bit of mild cognitive impairment, and I'm gonna start taking over. I have no idea where to start. Can you give me the three minute, like step one, step two, step three? I think step one is getting those financial power of attorney, or making sure my name is on all the documents, or
Well, so if you're truly walking in a situation where you don't know where the is, okay, I tell people to do a few things. Look at past tax returns. So you're going to see a lot of the income sources. You're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's going to give you some indication. The next thing is to look through the bank statements and credit card fees. That's going to give you an indication of what's going out when, those in particular. Then in your particular case, yes, as a spouse, you're going to want to be put on all of those accounts. You want to be put on as a co on bank accounts as they're appropriate. You also want to be put on co for utilities, phone, that sort of thing. It's amazing how some people are like, I can't talk to you because of this issue. If your husband has a lot of medical situations going on, then you want to have him at the very least get a HIPAA release. And then you also want to sit down with an attorney to work out those various documents, including a lot of the estate planning issues. So if you're not, and they might say, okay, set up a revocable trust, and then you have to go through and retitle those. But you need to understand first what you have, so that when you go to the attorney and then later maybe to the CPA, if you have a situation where you need tax planning, you have everything there. The worst thing that you could do is, the worst thing you could do is not do anything. But the more information you have, the better information that the attorney can use to prepare something that is going to be relevant to you.
Okay. We have two questions that kind of, I think, go hand in hand. Melissa asks, is durable power of attorney the same as financial power of attorney? And then Beth said, we're having trouble having financial organizations take the power of attorney.
Yeah.
Her dad has dementia. His name was the only one on all of his accounts. The bank's taken care of, but his investments are not. His investments accounts are not. So if you could explain the difference, if there's a difference between durable power of attorney and financial power of attorney, and then speak to that. How do you get this information to the banks and financial institutions and the investment.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to preface this and say that I'm not an attorney, so I'm going to provide this kind of high level educational purpose. So financial power of attorney and your general power of attorney are basically, from what I understand, one and the same thing. Okay. This allows you, if it has the right language, to to be added onto accounts and to, depending on what the document says, do different things. Sometimes you can add and change beneficiaries, and I'll say that with a caution. You need to do that under the direction of an attorney. It'll allow you to open and close accounts, that sort of thing. And then earlier in the presentation, when I said when you're putting together these financial power of attorney types of documents, you do want to talk to the bank in advance and say, hey, we need to be doing this. What language do you want, or do you want your own bespoke power of attorney form? And some banks want that. And at that time, then you pull that all together. Yeah, the banks say they can choose not to. Banks can say a lot of different things. If you really push it, yeah, they do have to. If it's legally a type of, from what I understand from several attorneys, if it is a legally drafted document that issues that, the banks do eventually have to honor that. It may be a long process, but yes, they do, if it is properly constructed within the state's rules. And that's where I had talked earlier about interviewing those banks. If they're going to give you a lot of drama over this, maybe it's time to get a different bank that's a little bit more elder friendly. The only way the banks are going to change if they're going to see the impact in their bottom line. Durable provisions basically mean that you can use it now as a power of attorney. You act as the minion. If it has durable provisions, it means that if they're later determined as being incapacitated, you're still the power of attorney. You don't have to go through the process of getting conservatorship or guardianship, okay? You may under other circumstances, but for the most part, that's what that means. Healthcare power of attorney seems exactly like that. You can make healthcare decisions for that person. And again, you want one where you could make the decisions, but really you're carrying out their decisions. Okay, because it's sometimes a real mess to navigate through that, and you're helping them navigate, and it allows you to talk to the people you need to do to implement the changes they want to make. And I cannot stress that more. Okay, it's not a unilateral type of document. And then again, with the durable provisions, if something happens, they're incapacitated, deemed incompetent, you take that over without having to go through additional issues. For the investment accounts, what you do is if there's a wealth manager involved, you reached out to them and you provide that document, and there's a process with that. So, you know, that the big thing is to reach out and provide those. The other big thing is to get this going as soon as possible while that person still has capacity, so that if you're having these issues, that's the time when you start firing these banks and these financial institutions, because if they're doing it to you now while things are really, really smooth, it's going to be really a nightmare when things get bad. And I cannot stress that more.
Thank you. You know, I have a colleague, Ann Fowler Smith is on the call. She is with Family Elder Care, and she's put a couple key comments into the chat. And so I just asked her if she could unmute and join the conversation. So, hi, Ann.
Hi there.
Hi there. I saw your question or your comment in quotes, what language do you want? And I wanted to ask you to just describe that a little bit more, or speak to that a little bit more.
Well, I really liked how you highlighted that, because I feel like so many of these institutions, they all have their own preferences, own ways of doing things. So even if you have the necessary paperwork in line, there sometimes seems like there's one thing they need that you don't have, or like, oh, you didn't check this box, so we're not able to help you, that sort of thing. So I think that's really important how you said, what language do you want, and really interviewing these institutions.
Yeah.
and finding out which ones are elder friendly is critical.
Mhm.
That's really great advice. We never really think about interviewing our financial institutions, but it's that I love that. I'm going to think about that a little bit more for myself.
Yeah, and even though convenience center is technically allowed in the state of Texas, not very many banks offer it. Or they'll want you to do a business account. And in some cases, getting a business account, yeah, there's fees with it. But sometimes that's just one way of just making it simpler. Again, and I think we get into this mentality too, but I don't have to pay fees for this bank. Okay. But they're putting you through like 2 hours of excruciating work every month. Whereas if you went to a bank that you had to pay maybe $25 a month for, you didn't have to. So I urge people to really think about their own mental health, their own time in dealing with these people in these institutions to get the right fit for yourself.
Wow, thank you. And also asked, do you find with folks who have dementia that a doctor's statement stating the adult is not able to make their own decisions necessary? Is it necessary to have that doctor's statement to I guess to get on the accounts or?
Well, so if you have it's my understanding again, it's like I'm going to say this as a definition because we're getting a little bit in the lawyer territory, which is not my lane. So from a practical matter, okay, if you have the financial power of attorney, it is properly structured for the state that you are in. You have talked to the bank, you have the right language in it, everything's copacetic. It has the durable provisions. Okay, so you've already presented it to the bank and the bank has taken it. Okay, it doesn't matter at that point if they're competent or not, because you already have the power of attorney in place. The part where you want to act as the minion is when they are still competent and you're acting as, when you're your power of attorney, you're acting as their agent. Okay, you're not doing things unilaterally. Now, if you have a situation where they have been deemed incompetent and you're the power of attorney, and maybe they have a memory issue or something's going on and they're going to the bank and they're doing weird stuff, okay, and you need to shut that down, then you probably will have to prove that now that provision has now kicked in. And yes, those letters will help you show that. And you need to consult with your attorney and say, okay, we're having issues with mom going into the bank, withdrawing all this money out and doing weird stuff or canceling auto pays or whatever you have to set up. It's time now to shut this down. Then that attorney can guide you through that particular process and then how to work with the bank to get that going.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I have a list of elder law attorneys if anybody needs that. These people are excellent resources and have really good recommendations. Are known in the community for being people of integrity and really good at what they do. So if anybody needs that, you can reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. And then
Beth, Batch, I'm reading in the comments. I'm going to just mention to you Office of the Comptroller of Currency, and I'll just leave it at that.
oh, for Beth's comment about the Wells Fargo.
Yeah, you can file complaints and you can file on the state and federal level complaints when you do have a valid POA and the bank is giving you a bit of drama. They tend not to like that, and then they tend to be a bit more cooperative. Again, this is where I go into you really have to evaluate them. That particular bank is not one of my favorites personally.
And
This is not necessarily an endorsement, but if you want low drama, in particular, Frost Bank and Prosperity Bank are two ones that tend to be a little bit lower drama in the Austin area.
And you said to file a complaint, it's the Office of the Comptroller?
Comptroller of the Currency.
Comptroller.
And some other folks in financial services here might have other types of agencies that would be good to contact as well.
Okay, super. Wow, a lot of information. I know, just from a personal note, my grandmother is fully competent. She's active. She lives independently. She's 93 years old, and she has added my mom onto her accounts because she just hates having to deal with the technology. And now that everything is online and she can't take money out of the teller anymore at her local bank. She has to do it with her card and the machine, and she hates that. So she added my mom onto all of her accounts just for that, just because she hates the technology. But yeah, it's made her life a lot simpler, a lot simpler. So
I caution people, and I've posted this on other Facebook groups that I participate in. There is this, oh, just add me to the account. Well, you want to be added as a POA or a convenience signer, not as an owner. That can cause a lot of estate issues, or if you have some legal issue pop out, then that account that you're on can get rolled into and is considered your asset. So be really, really careful about just adding your name onto
as an
that
owner.
account.
Thank you. Good words of wisdom there. Good words of wisdom. Thank you, Bruce, for putting in that
There's
link.
Bruce.
Shannon apparently knows
I know
Bruce.
Bruce. He's gonna throw me a sideball problem here. Let's see here. There. Oh no, he provided a link. Thank you, Bruce.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Beth said Frostbank, in which other in Texas? Frostbank in Waco
And
or
Prosperity.
Prosperity.
And elder care. You guys use that, right? Family elder
Yeah,
care.
we use a Prosperity Bank.
Yeah.
So we're happy with them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that in the chat as well.
Mhm.
Well, thank you all so very much. That was a lot of information. And thank you, Shannon. Fantastic. Anybody, if you want to reach out to Shannon, she put a link in the chat, and I'm going to copy it and put it back in there so it shows up at the very next new message. If you want to reach out to her and get connected to her, she would be happy to meet with you all and give you a hand, answer any other questions that you have as they pertain to your particular experience or circumstances. So thank you very much. So we kind of talked about building your financial fortress, and now we're going to think about your trusted circle and building your care team and communicating and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm so excited to have Jessica kick us off with that. Thank you, Jessica. Jessica introduced herself earlier, but I'll just do that for people who have joined us since that time. Jessica is with Texas AARP, and she is a wealth of knowledge for older adults and caregivers. Thank you so much for being with us. We're excited to hear what you have to share with us today.
Oh, thank you. And let me share my screen. Normally on the other side of this hosting and not speaking. So I'm trying to show all windows. I always probably have too many windows open at one time. Okay. Can you see that?
We sure can.
Okay, good. Because I can't see anything but the PowerPoint. Okay, I'll get started. Again, thank you.
Jessica, what we see is your PowerPoint presentation with your speaker notes.
Oh, that is not, so I only see the slide itself. So hold on. Display swap. What about now?
Now we see your slide.
Now you see this. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your patience. So again, I'm Jessica Lemann with AARP Texas, and thank you again to AGE for having me here with you all for this conversation about, how you can better support your loved ones. So to help you get a picture of today's family caregiver, I just want to ask a few questions, and you can use the reaction button to give it a like or raise your hand if any of the following is true for you now or at any time in the past. So one, do you help a loved one with household tasks like cleaning, laundry, or yard work? Do you help them with medication? Do you regularly cook or provide food for a loved one? Are you driving someone to a doctor's appointment, making a shopping trip, running errands for them, providing personal care like bathing or dressing? Have you helped someone with their finances or paid their bills or provided emotional support or companionship? Are you communicating with health professionals and coordinating care? If you have raised your hand for any of those things, you are or have already been a caregiver. And I just think it's important to recognize that sometimes we're preparing to be a caregiver when we're already actually in that role. And you should certainly give yourself a hand for the important work that you're doing. So caregiving is certainly one of the most important roles that you will take on in your life. Our founder, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, was a caregiver herself to her parents. In fact, she left her job to care for her mother. And she said, it is only in the giving of oneself to others that we truly live. The human contribution is the essential ingredient. And Dr. Andrus was an educator, and her passion was to help older Americans lead lives of independence, dignity, and purpose. She founded the National Retired Teachers Association in 1947 and later AARP in 1958. So caregiving is really in our DNA. AARP supports family caregivers and their loved ones both directly through programs and online resources, and more indirectly through our state and federal advocacy. So we know caregivers juggle many tasks, and sometimes it might feel kind of like this picture. And so here are some facts about caregiving, which I think really help set the stage when we talk about creating a plan and building and the importance of having that team around us. Family caregivers provide the majority of long-term care in the United States. The average family caregiver is a 49-year-old woman who works 35 hours a week and provides 25 hours or more of care. Now, obviously, that is not everyone, but that is the average caregiver. More than 48 million family caregivers each year provide care to aging parents, spouses, aunts, uncles, friends, and loved ones. And in 2020, more than 41 million of them were giving care to someone over the age of 50. Caregiving affects the whole family, and men are now just as likely to say they're a family caregiver as women. And 24% of young Americans age 18 to 34 also say they are family caregivers. So today I want to talk about some practical information to help you care for your loved one while also caring for yourself. And this is really 5 steps: starting the conversation, forming your team, making a plan with that team, and finding support with your team and caring for yourself. And so again, the focus is really forming your team, but for that to be effective, we have to talk about each of the steps so we can really dig into the roles that members of your team can play when creating a plan for caring for your loved one. So starting the conversation, often families avoid discussions about the future simply because they don't want to think about changes in the lives of the people they love the most. And many people wait until a crisis occurs before they talk about their values, their preferences, their wishes for health care, or details about their finances. It is never easy to bring up what you think will be an uncomfortable topic. However, a lot of uncertainty can be avoided by talking about these things before a crisis occurs. And it's easy to put off these conversations because they're difficult and we're incredibly busy. But you may be surprised to find out that your loved one also wants to have this conversation, and they too have just been putting it off. So before you start the conversation, here are some things to consider. Look for an opening. When raising the topic of future care, you might find it helpful to reference an article you just read or something you saw on the news to break the ice. For example, I'm starting to think about estate planning for myself. Do you have any advice? I just read an article about gathering all of your important papers. Sometime, do you think you could show me where yours are and what you would like me to do just in case? Try not to anticipate what your loved one would say or how they will react. just start the conversation. Be open, express your love and concern, and most importantly, listen. And keep in mind that the conversation will take place over time. Respect your loved one's wishes and make sure your loved one is participating in the conversation as much as possible. We have to center our caregiving plan on the wishes of the person we're caring for. Where do they want to live? How do they want to handle their finances? And once you get the conversation going, evaluate what you're hearing, understanding your loved one's priorities, where they want to live, the nature of their care will help determine the next steps as you decide what you should consider and who you should consider to be part of your team and how they can help. So I know we just talked a lot about finances, so I'll just, be really brief here, but money can be a particularly sensitive subject to talk about, but it's also at the heart of many of the decisions that you'll make with your loved ones. So again, consider how you're going to pay for housing, health, and other expenses, groceries, medication, transportation. Ask your loved one to, even if, you're not going to be doing, the person with the power of attorney, make sure they're thinking about their bank accounts, their investments, their insurance, what kind of insurance they have. If they have long-term care insurance, they may or may not, that you need to, it would be helpful if you're managing their care to know those things. And again, AARP has created a financial workbook for caregivers that you can find at aarp.org. /caregiving, and it comes with worksheets designed for caregivers to capture the essential information to manage that complex responsibility of caregiving. And we have one that's specific to veteran and military families as well. So you may find that your loved one's initial response to your attempt to have these conversations might be, I don't want to talk about it. So keep in mind that some people are just private by nature, and it's difficult for people to admit that they need help. And so you may encounter some resistance. So if your first conversation doesn't go well, keep trying. And if you're running into difficulty, ask maybe a trusted family friend, a doctor, a faith leader to share their concerns. And what I've found in talking about caregiving is that we learn the most from other caregivers. So, I would say go ahead and put in the chat, like how you approach your loved one. If you've had this conversation and they really resisted, if you have any tips to share for others, put them in the chat so everyone can learn from each other. If you've had success, what did that look like and what do you think made the difference? So as we go on, I'm going to ask you several times to put some of your best tips and knowledge into the chat. So now, forming your team. Caring for a family member or friend is often too big a job for just one person. And trying to do everything yourself can lead to burnout and problems with your own health and well-being. So it's important to form a larger network of family and friends and tap into your community resources to help share the load. Your loved one can help you identify willing team members, such as neighbors, or friends from their faith community that you may not know or have thought of otherwise. So you want to look for team members who, live nearby. Proximity certainly has its advantages, such as being able to just stop by and see and check on your loved one, driving him or her to a doctor's appointments or bringing over a meal. But then just because someone doesn't live nearby doesn't mean they can't help pitch in. So family or friends who live at a distance can help with tasks like coordinating meals, bill paying, or financial assistance. Folks who can help with simple tasks. Don't be hesitant to ask others for help. Some people just need a little encouragement and they want to help. They just don't know what you need. So they're so glad when you do reach out and ask for help. And asking people to share their talents. Leverage the strengths of your team. So if you have a computer whiz in the family, they can set up an online calendar for coordinating meals or chores. If you have someone who really loves gardening, maybe they can help your loved one with their yard or their flower beds that are very important to them. your loved one, again, can help identify a lot of these team members. And if your loved one is primarily homebound, identifying family members, friends, and neighbors, again, who can do that check-in, the shopping, is so important, and finding out if there are services like Meals on Wheels or other local services to help deliver food and medication to them, especially if you're still working. So some other considerations about building and supporting your team is really figuring out how many people you want on the team. Both quantity and quality are important to think about. While having a large caregiving team can be very helpful, too many people might be unwieldy to manage. So make sure everyone on the team is clear about their responsibilities, which we'll talk more about in a minute, and they should be supportive and willing to lend a hand to you and your loved one. Assign clear roles and responsibilities. Everyone has something to contribute. Play to their strengths, be clear on what's needed and expected, and again, focus on the care recipient. This key is unfortunately sometimes overlooked because we get so busy and we're so focused in fix-it mode that we forget to include the participant in the conversation, which is the person who needs the care. So barring mental or physical incapacity or other extraordinary circumstances, the person receiving the care should play the most significant role in determining who should be on this team and what are the things that need to be done. So again, put in that chat if you have any tips to share on, who you've included in your caregiving team. Remember, these are folks, as much as there is already to do, show them your appreciation, anything from a thank you note or an email or a phone call. Ask for the help you need when you need it. That's why you have a team. And again, those who live far away, other things they can do is regularly connect with your loved one by giving them a call, sending cards, texting, FaceTiming. So now to talk about planning with your team. You need to build a plan and designate responsibilities. So make sure your plans are being made. Again, I'm going to say this over and over, with the person you're caring for at the center of the discussion. The plan does not have to be extensive or fancy, and you can never anticipate every detail or scenario, but it should include immediate needs as well as some thoughts for the future. And keep in mind that options for addressing needs will depend on finances, the willingness of your support team, and the resources available in your community. So a family team meeting is one way to help get things organized and to ensure that, who is willing to be part of this care team and to get you all on the same page when it comes to making and keeping a plan. So as you meet with your caregiving team, this can be face-to-face, it can be over Zoom or through a series of emails, but determine what works best for all of you. Set up a system for future communications with your team. So assess the goals and needs of your caregiving plan. This doesn't have to be extensive. And again, you can't anticipate every scenario, but you can, again, include those immediate needs and broader plans for the future. And I'm going to show you another guide. ARRP has a caregiving guide. It looks a little bit different. We've updated the graphics, but it's the same information. And you can find this at that AARP.org/caregiving. But it has a needs assessment worksheet, a goals worksheet, a sample caregiving plan that you can use and adopt to your needs that says, list the tasks, when will they be done, who is responsible. Let's see. And then, some other information about home maintenance, health, finances, transportation, and more that you can also include and keep track of. So if your loved one is looking to move in the next year or so, again, you can assign someone that task of researching locations, different housing options in the area that they want to live. Maybe they need to get closer to family. And after you determine your goals, that's when you really start delegating the responsibilities. So who's going to do what? Determine what tasks that everyone is comfortable performing. What would they like to do for your loved one? And be sure to ask, so ask them about their preferences before you just start assigning things. And be open to modifications as the situation and team members' ability to help may change. Or how your loved one's needs unfold as time goes by, and it may be different than what you expected. So some other tips to remember during this meeting is, the team member who will receive the care, again, playing that significant role in talking about and assigning roles and tasks to the extent possible. So an example of this is there may be an adult child who is an accountant, but the parent does not want that, is not comfortable with that child being the one to handle their financial affairs. And so again, those are just things that you need to take into consideration, and you cannot over communicate. Keep folks informed as things change. Make sure everyone knows what you're going to be talking about ahead of time, and that will help ensure there aren't surprises or hurt feelings, though hurt feelings could happen no matter what you do. And then one team member should take notes, write a summary of what was decided, and just make sure you capture the wishes and needs of your loved ones. So again, another place to start putting in the chat, what are your tips for making a plan if you've already done this, for assigning tasks? Again, we have that goals checklist in our caregiver guide, understanding that plans can often change. So finding support. What you may realize is that even with the best team in place, that the scope of care needed could be beyond what you and this team can provide. And so you need to reach out for extra support. And there are a number of ways to obtain the help that you might need. And again, I think Bonnie's going to talk about all the great resources that AGE provides. And again, we're so lucky to live in a community where we're the same community where AGE exists. But there are many types of community resources that can provide support. And so this is also the type of research you can ask a member or team members to take on. So your local area agency on aging can help connect you with a variety of services like home delivered meals, transportation, adult daycare, care management, and more. And the area agency on aging can also answer questions about which resources are free and which may have a cost. And then you can check into services offered through the community through the Elder Care Locator. This is a public service of the United States Administration on Aging that connects caregivers to local services and supports. And then, of course, you can consult professionals. Your loved one's needs may be complex, especially when health, emotional, and financial issues are at play. So a trained social worker and a nurse can help you sort things out and determine what's needed, find services, and arrange care. And of course, if you are still working, your employer may also offer employee assistance programs. So ask, members of your team who are still working, do they have resources through their employer that you can use to help support your loved ones and connect to professionals in the community? And teams, again, often need outside support, and that's okay. So you might consider hiring help if you see that your loved one needs help with daily activities. There could be home care options that you also need to bring in. So home care workers that maybe do household chores, like cleaning or preparing meals. And then there are others that do personal tasks, like bathing and dressing. And again, this is something your local area on agency on aging can help you identify. And then AARP is that caregiver resource where you can find our guides. AARP.org/caregiving also has more information. You also want to make sure your loved one is safe and comfortable in their home. So thinking about things like grab rails, handrails, night lights, adjustable shower seats, And so some of those things like installing grab bars may be best left to a professional to make sure they are safe. So AARP also has a home fit guide, aarp.org/homefit, for a whole range of low cost, easy solutions, and maybe some bigger things that you might want to consider for your home that might require a contractor, but a lot of things that you can do yourself to make your loved one's home a lifelong home, where that they can remain independent for as long as possible. And then exploring housing options. A variety of housing with supportive services may be available in your community, but you really need to think about their criteria, such as location, dining, laundry, various services. And if you do go that route, you and your team should, make sure you visit the facilities, talk to other residents and their families to get an idea if this is the place that you want your loved one to be. And then I certainly encourage support groups. I know AGE can put you in touch with a number of support groups. We have Caregiver Cafe in Austin, but again, other caregivers are some of your best resources. Let's see. So again, if you have support, put that in the chat, share with others, let them know what is working for you. You can also visit senior centers in the community that have options for activities and help keeping your loved one from feeling isolated, because we know just how damaging isolation can be when you're by yourself, but you're working. And so you need to get them out in the community and keeping that sense of community that they've had. There may also be respite care sites so you can take a break. And so if you know of any of those, again, put those in the chat. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, beyond the team, caring for yourself. Caregiving has a huge impact on the caregiver. So pay attention to your own health and well-being. And the best way to ensure you have the energy to care for a loved one is to take care of yourself. My father actually retired early to be the primary caregiver for his mother, and he did that for a number of years. And shortly after she passed away, he ended up having emergency surgery because he had put off all of his own healthcare needs while he was taking care of her, and had let things go and ended up in the hospital for a significant amount of time because he wasn't taking care of himself. So be sure that you are staying up on your own healthcare appointments and really listening to your body. So again, for yourself, tap into resources. Social workers, nurses, and other professionals can help you through some care options and to help monitor care of your loved one if you don't live nearby. Technology is great. Personal emergency response systems, remote monitoring devices, and mobile apps can help you coordinate care. Talk to your employer if you're still working. Again, they may offer benefits and services and support for family caregivers. And make sure you're looking at your own finances. And we know that family caregivers often spend a lot of their own personal money to help support their loved ones. And so you want to be sure you're calculating those expenses, you're accounting for them when you budget, and you're talking about this with your team, so you're sharing the cost equitably with others if they can help financially. Some other things to think about, let your doctor, your primary care physician, know that you're a caregiver and talk with them about ways to manage your stress. Advocate for yourself. The Caregiver Advise, Record, and Enable Act, also known as the CARE Act, has passed in a number of states, including Texas. And so if you are expected to provide any complex medical tasks in the home, your loved one's doctor should be working with you and training you on how to do those tasks. They are required to do that. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to tell your doctor, no, you need to show me how to do that. I need some training. Take advantage of, again, caregiving services and supports. Reach out to AGE. You're here because you're familiar with what AGE does. Tell your friends about AGE. Take advantage of all the resources that they offer, and make sure you're taking a break. Make time for exercise, sleep, staying connected with your friends and community. So again, share with the others on this call, like, what are your tips for caring for yourself? Is it taking a night off? Is it meeting up with friends? Taking walks, reading, getting a massage? I know that sometimes feels self-indulgent, but it's really not. If it's important to you, then you should do it. And then again, just AARP offers a number of online resources that you can find at aarp.org/caregiving. We have a toll-free number. This is a hotline. It's open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. and Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., where you can ask questions and get resources. The community resource finder, aarp.org/CRF, is a directory compiled from provider descriptions and public data that's made possible through the Alzheimer's Association and AARP. And then learn.aarp.org is a site you can visit to learn about upcoming events and explore interactive educational videos and webinars on caregiving. And again, that caregiving guide that you can find at this site has so many resources, including how to get in touch with your local area agency on aging and the elder care booklet. So I hope that some of this information has been valuable and that you're starting to really think about building a team and creating a caregiver plan, and that you're a little bit more familiar with some resources. And so again, to continue learning on this topic, you can check out, again, go to that website. We have so much there that I think you will find helpful. And learn.aarp.org on the previous slide. Not only does it have, you can find information about caregiving, you can find webinars and more information on other topics like Medicare, Social Security, fraud prevention, work and jobs as well. So, and again, we have a number of free in-person and virtual events. We did 150 events in Austin last year alone, not to mention our other events throughout the state. So please go to aarp.org/Texas and to find out even more about what we do. So let me stop sharing, if I can figure out now how to do that. Okay, there we go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was great. I was at a meeting yesterday from the Texas South Austin chapter of AARP, and one of the things that you mentioned is about staying engaged and doing stuff in the community, and that the local chapters too are so great at staying engaged and providing social interaction, and it was great. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for the information. I'm going to scroll through the chat because you asked people to put things in the chat, and they did, and there was a lot of great resources. So one of the comments was our book recommendation called How to Say It to Seniors by David Soley. And that was, how do we have these conversations? It's hard for us to have these conversations. It's hard for people to talk about it. So Jennifer, thank you for that recommendation. And Ann Fowler-Smith from Family Elder Care, again, so glad you're on the call as well. She mentioned faith leaders as being good people to talk to as well, or even invite into those meetings. And I can tell you, as a former pastor, I used to be a pastor for about 12 years, and definitely got invited to a lot of those conversations. And I think we made a difference in those conversations and how things went, because older adults, people who are members of our congregations, have this trusted relationship with us and value, as ministers, value our objectivity. So I think it's definitely worth reaching out to your pastor if that is somebody that's important in your person's life or even in your own life. Shannon had a tip about even getting help collecting the mail and putting it in a central location can be huge. I know even for myself, trying to go to the mailbox once a week is such a chore. So that could be really helpful. I love doing laundry, and that's one of the things I always offer to people when they're needing help is, can I just come? I'll do your laundry for you. It's one of my favorite chores, so I'm happy to do that. Yard work is a big need for many people, and so reaching out to find support for that is a great tip. It takes a lot of weight off. Shannon, thank you also for pointing out Golden Home Management that deals with ongoing home maintenance and repair services. She recommends them as being very reliable and ethical. And Aging Life Care Services or Aging Life Care Professional, that's a really great resource if you need somebody kind of organizing everything. An Aging Life Care Professional can be really helpful. One of the questions that Jan asked is, we asked some close family members to join the team and they said they're too busy. What can you do?
So we can't force anybody to do anything, but I think one thing that is helpful is to be very specific with the ask. So we need meals one night a week. Can you do this one thing? Here's what we need. What from this list could you do? And to really have some specifics out there, because sometimes joining a team might feel overwhelming. It's like, oh, that sounds like it has a lot of responsibilities. But if you have a list of things that need to be done, yeah, can you stop by and get the mail once a week? Can you bring one meal a week to the house? Can you set a timer on your phone every Friday to give them a call and to spend 20 minutes talking to them? Simple, easy things that it may not seem like a huge help to you, but it really is a way to pull them in, but it's having that specific, easy ask. And then maybe once they're doing that, you can add to the ask. It's like, oh, while you're bringing that meal, would you mind doing this too? But just build up to it gradually. I hope that's helpful. And if anyone else has some other ideas that have experienced that, I encourage you to share that as well.
Yeah, that is really helpful. I know one of the things we teach in our classes and powerful tools for caregivers particularly is brainstorm that list of all the tasks and keep that by the phone. So when you're talking to somebody and they say, oh, if you ever need anything, give me a shout. And you can say, actually, and scan that list and pick something out and give it to them, assign them that task. Most people are willing to help, but they want to know the very specifics of how can I help? And they don't feel equipped. Like we all didn't feel equipped when we started caregiving. People don't feel equipped to help, but you can assure them that they are. Are there any other questions you can put in the chat?
I think we also need to keep in mind their reticence could be that they are still processing this loved one's decline and having a hard time with it. Mm-hmm. And that it takes different people, different stages of adjusting to things. And some people are more doers and some are not. So just also keeping that in mind, and I think highlighting specifics of what they can do or really tailoring it to their strengths.
Yeah,
might be, again, is very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for pointing that out, Anne, because I know that as we enter into the caregiving role, as our person needs care, there's a lot of grief in that. And so being aware of that, we all process grief a little bit differently and keeping that in mind. Thank you. Thank you.
Some people freeze. Some people go into fix it mode and other people's go into freeze and stop mode, and they're just not prepared to face it. And we have to be very careful that we don't let this affect our relationships with our loved ones, and that as easy as it is to judge their reaction to the situation, that to try not to do that, because at the end of the day, you are each other's family, and don't let this come between that, even if you're frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Wow, a lot of information. For those of you who are on the call, I'm just going to quickly put in, as we're waiting to see if there's any other questions before we move on, a link to a form that, because Age of Central Texas is a nonprofit, we love to know who we're serving so that that can help us to better tailor our educational opportunities, whether that's webinars or conferences or seminars or programs. We want to be able to tailor that to the people that we're serving. And so it helps to know who you all are. So I've put a form link in the chat that you can just click on, and it's completely optional, but it would really help us if you could complete that. And I'm going to share a little bit about Age for those of you who don't know all that we do. I wanted to take some time to share that. And so if there's no further questions for Jessica, we will move on to that. All right. And you can tell me now if you can see my screen, because I cannot see y'all anymore, I don't think. Okay, I got a thumbs up. Perfect. Let's see, there's one question in the chat, or one comment in the chat. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for letting me know that you can see my screen. So Age of Central Texas. We are 40 years old, serving older adults and caregivers here in Central Texas. We started way back when as a collaborative group of organizations and entities that were concerned about older adults and caregivers, and we've grown and grown and grown, and now we serve 4 counties: Bastrop, Hayes, Travis, and Williamson County. And we provide a number of different services to help older adults and caregivers thrive while navigating the challenges, realities, and opportunities of aging and caregiving. So, for example, way back when we were Family Elder Care was in our building, and now Family Elder Care has grown beyond our walls, and they're on their own, but we still do a lot of things with Family Elder Care and still have great relationships with Family Elder Care. Area Agency on Aging, we work with a lot. So a lot of different entities in the area that we partner with, and we love to bring people together. Collaboration, teamwork is a huge part of what we do. We have a number of different programs that support older adults and caregivers, and you can see them all listed on this slide. We have our Thrive Social and Wellness Center, our Memory Connections program, the Caregiver Resource Center, Caregiver U, our Help program, and our Computer Lab, and I'll talk about each one of those independently. Our Thrive Social and Wellness Centers are licensed adult day centers. We have 2 locations right now. One is in Central Austin, where I am at our main building. And then the other is in Williamson County in Round Rock. And those are day centers where folks can come. They can be with us the whole day from 7 in the morning until 5:30 at night. It can be a long day. But for those people who have to work and our caregivers, this is a great option for folks where their person can come and participate in great activities. We have a lot of opportunities for enrichment, socialization, activities for art and music and chair yoga and exercise. We have gardens, but we also have a licensed nurse on staff who can help manage medications and do well checks and that sort of thing, really keeping an eye on your person. It's for people who have physical challenges, chronic health conditions, cognitive impairment. We have the ability to manage all of those things. There's an intake process, and so we can determine with the help of the doctor and our nurse and the care team if it's an appropriate fit or setting for your person. So that's an option. It's really great because it's way more affordable than having to hire in-home help. If a person was to participate in a Thrive Social and Wellness Center setting 3 days a week or more, it's only $75 a day. If it's 1 or 2 days a week, it's $100 a day. And compared to the cost of in-home care, which in Austin right now, it's averaging between $30 and $40 per hour, It's a better option for most families in terms of affordability. So I like to just share that. It's a great resource. The staff are excellent and the centers are fun and really engaging for folks. We're opening a new center in South Austin, and we will be able to accommodate 75 members at that location. So we're really excited about that, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. Our Memory Connections Online program is our really beautiful program for folks who have mild cognitive impairment or early stage dementia disease causing diagnoses. So whether that's Alzheimer's or Lewy body dementia or any of the other diseases that cause dementia, this program is excellent. In this program, which is all online, it's offered through Zoom, folks are able to log in morning and afternoon, 5 days a week, to programs that's really a schedule curated for them that suits them and suits their interests and suits their needs. But what we really aim to do is slow disease progression. And there are programs within Memory Connections that are evidence-based, so studied and shown to do that, to slow disease progression. But we also really want to encourage people to stay socially engaged in community. And through this online program, people are able to do that. It's really fun to watch people log in and say, oh, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you this week. How are things going? Because they've developed friendships through the program. And I really appreciate that and love that. Within the program as well, there's support groups for the participants, and we can connect their caregivers to support groups as well. So a lot of great programs. It is a cost, a for-fee program, and that fee is $120 a month, but we offer a sliding fee scale, so it can be dependent on your income or your resources, anywhere from about $20 a month up to $120 a month, depending on qualification. And there is an intake process as well, because we really want to make sure that people who are participating in this program are going to benefit and be able to engage with everyone else in the program.
How often do you meet?
It's every day, Janet. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, morning and afternoon. Yeah, it's a full schedule of activities and meetings. Our Resource and Information Center is my program. That's what I do. I offer one-on-one consultations for folks, whether that's by phone, virtually, in person, in my office, or in person off-site. I can meet people in their homes to help them navigate resources. So a lot of times people reach out to me and they have no idea where to make their next best first phone call or reach out to who for what. You know, they know that mom is coming home from rehab and they don't know, how do I get care? How do I navigate insurance? How do I get connected to the bank? How do I do this? So I can help point people in the right direction. Our goal is to empower older adults and caregivers so that they have the resources they need, the information they need to age in place and thrive while doing that. Caregiver education through Caregiver U. That's actually how I first got connected to Age of Central Texas, was through Caregiver U. I had so many people in my congregation. I mentioned I had been a pastor. I had a lot of people in my congregation who were caregivers or were being cared for and didn't know what to do next, needed information, needed to talk to other people who needed the same information or were in the same boat. And so Caregiver U was really excellent at providing that education and connecting people into community. They offer 3 core courses. They are research-based. Again, those have been studied and shown to be impactful and beneficial for caregivers and older adults. Those courses are Powerful Tools for Caregivers, Savvy Caregiver, and A Matter of Balance. A Matter of Balance is a falls prevention class aimed at older adults, so it's for any older adult. As people age, we tend to think that falling is inevitable And our fear of falling starts to shrink our world. We stop participating in those things that we've always loved to do because we might fall or we might trip, and we don't want to do that. And it can really impact our well-being when we stop doing those things because of our fear of falling. So a matter of balance is geared to older adults to give them confidence to think proactively about their environment, about their activities, so that they can lessen the risk of falling and enjoy life to the fullest. Powerful Tools for Caregivers is a general caregiving class for any non-professional family caregiver. A lot of the focus in this class is on strategies, resources, communication is a big piece of this class, and caregiver self-care, building your team. A lot of the things that Jessica talked about, we go into in depth in Powerful Tools for Caregivers. It's a 6-week class or a 6-session class compared to A Matter of Balance, which is an 8-session class. And then we have Savvy Caregiver. And Savvy Caregiver is for that caregiver whose person has a dementia-causing disease. It is a lot of information about dementia symptoms, strategies for care, strategies for navigating dementia symptoms, as well as disease progression, what to expect in this stage or this stage, and what resources might you need to rely on at each stage. And again, it also talks about caregiver self-care. I don't recall Jessica saying this, but 18% of caregivers statistically will pass away before the person they're caring for. And we hate that number. We wish that number didn't exist. But caregivers don't take care of themselves, and we want to change that. So that's a big part of what we do in our education piece, telling caregivers and teaching caregivers how to take care of themselves. We also have short courses called the Empowering You series, empowering you to prevent falls, empowering you to be a smart and healthy caregiver, empowering you to be a strategic dementia caregiver. Those classes are 2 or 3 sessions long, typically offered in an online setting or in person. And our other classes, the core classes, are also offered typically in person, but now we have some partner agencies that are offering them online. We offer all of these classes free of charge through partner agencies scattered throughout our Central Texas area. We also have our health equipment lending program, which for many people, our health equipment lending program is the first point of contact with age. We receive donations of durable medical equipment. We have volunteers that make sure they're safe, clean, in good condition, and we give them right back out into the community with no eligibility requirements and no limit on how long you have that equipment. So if you need a wheelchair and you know you don't want to have to buy one because they can be expensive and your insurance isn't going to cover it for some reason, you can reach out to us, and if we have it, you can have it, and you can have it for as long as you need it. We also offer an incontinence program, so people who need incontinence products, whether that's the adult pull-ups or tabbed briefs, liners, bed pads, all of those things. We have a program where folks can get signed up to receive those items once a month from us. That includes gloves and wipes as well, and barrier cream, all of those things that are so expensive. So we take donations of those, opened packages, unopened packages. We're happy to take them and share them back out to the community. And we have our computer lab. Our computer lab is going through a revision right now, or revamping. And when we open our new South location, our computer lab is going to be opening again. In the past, we've taught basic computer literacy classes and things like Photoshop and Excel and email and that sort of thing. But now we're also including how to use that Apple Watch that your kids got you for Christmas, because it has a fall prevention app or a fall notification app on it. And those things can be so complicated to use. So we're going to be teaching about wearables, using those apps on the iPads, using technology to really support you as you age in place. So that's our computer lab, and those classes are all free of charge as well and offered through volunteers. So if you happen to be a computer guru and you want to volunteer with the computer lab, we'd love to hear from you. This is our new building. We're so excited. We're hoping it will be open later in the spring. It's gorgeous. And I'll just point out, I hope you can see my mouse. See this little window right here? It's actually a great big window. That's going to be my office for the Information and Resource Center. But all of this back part back here on the ground floor is our Thrive Social and Wellness Center. It is fantastic. I cannot wait for it to open. It's going to be so beautiful. We also have co-working space up top and conference space and classroom space. So we're really excited about that. And again, you can keep an eye out on our newsletters on our website for when that's opening. We'll be having a grand opening once we get the word that we can move in. So we're excited about that. So that was a lot of information from me that I just shared with you all. Now, Shannon asked, can this day program accommodate memory care folks? Yes, it can. It absolutely can. Our Thrive Social and Wellness Centers are secure locations, so people cannot just get in or out. They have to be buzzed in and that sort of thing, so it's secure. And our staff have training for dementia care, memory care, and yeah, absolutely can accommodate that. Again, there is an intake process, and the things that we're actually looking for have to do with, do they need assistance with toileting? So do they need a 2-person transfer, that sort of thing? Those are the questions that would, that kind of care is going to exclude somebody from our Thrive Social and Wellness Center. I see there's, do we currently have a wait list at your locations? So our Round Rock location, thanks Anne for asking, our Round Rock location is almost full. There are some days that they are full and some days they are not quite full. So it's getting pretty close to capacity at our Round Rock Center. I will say this about our central location. Our central location will be closing when our south location opens. But what we're planning on doing for those folks who cannot move north and are living in the south location, they can come to the central location and we're going to bus them south. We have a number of, we just got a beautiful new bus. So we have a number of buses and we will be transporting people south to save families that time and energy to get them to the south location. So we are doing that. We'll be sending people to the south location. It's so pretty and the gardens are spectacular. They're going to just be lovely with walking trails and it's so nice. It's going to be so nice. So we're excited about that. If anybody on the call is interested in seeing, having a tour, you can reach out to us because I know that our development team has been taking folks out for tours already. So we'd be happy to do that. Are there any other questions that anybody has before we end our meeting? Thank you all so very much for participating in our very first seminar/webinar for 2024. We hope that you have had, as Shannon said, it was a fire hose of information. Absolutely, it was a fire hose of information. You can always reach out to me, you can reach out to Shannon, you can reach out to Jessica, and we can get you connected to any of the resources that we mentioned, or we can answer any questions that you have. And I will give you a heads up. There will be a survey coming your way after this meeting through the email. Again, optional survey. But one of the questions on there is, how can we help you in the future? What would you like us to present topics on? So I would love for you to go ahead and fill that out and help us plan for future seminars as we move further into 2024. We would really appreciate that. And thank you to Shannon and thank you to Jessica. They've put their emails into the chat right now, so you can reach out to them. I really appreciate you all being here, and I wish you all the best as you go on about your day, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.